I'm Red Beard the Hippy here with Otherworldly Entitiy, a new metal band out of the New York area. Am I correct with that?
That is correct. Yep.
Uh, I kind of briefly glanced through the thing. Which part of New York? Because obviously New York is a large, and everybody thinks New York is New York, New York, and that's all that exists in New York.
And it's funny, we're about 4 or 5 hours away in central New York. So we're actually I'm in Syracuse. And our drummer, Sean Walker's in Oswego, and Flacco, our guitarist, is in Oneida. So all right around central New York.
What kind of scene is up there? Because it's different being in like the Midwest, hearing what different scenes are in different areas. Because I literally a month ago interviewed a hardcore band from New York, the Urban Waste, that had kind of reformed and is doing stuff again. So I know New York's also got like that hardcore scene that everybody thinks of. So what are some of the other styles that are up in that area?
I mean, really, right now, that's about it. It's about a hardcore scene, and that's been kind of an issue for us. Is our last electric album that we did, Still a Cyborg, we were really trying to fit in more with that heavier scene. And this is the first album. This album that's coming out at the end of this month is our first album where we went, why are we trying to impress the hardcore scene? Like, that's not who we are. That's not what we do. So it's kind of separating out from that. There isn't much of a new metal or an alt scene around here. There's a few bands, but it's not that active. So we end up on the road.
Well, that kind of makes sense. And so, like, what are some of the? Have you guys just done shows in New York, like the state of New York, or do you kind of branch out, or how does that
No, we
work?
branch out. We just did a run in October where we ended up out in New England. We played this really great venue in Worcester, Massachusetts, called the Raven. That was a really fun show. We played Metal in the Mountains down in Pipestone, West Virginia. Yeah, we've been all over the place, and I love just hitting the road and seeing what's out there.
Probably not in the winter months though. More in the spring, summer, and fall months.
No, we're currently in a blizzard that's been going on for about a week now. Uh, so yeah, we don't we this is kind of our downtime. That's why we're releasing an album in December. Is we're kind of like this is our second to relax and kind of get on the ball with releasing new material so that when we hit the road again, we're playing new material. So yeah, winter is not really much of a travel time.
Well, and I noticed that unless you're like in the southern part of the United States, it's so sporadic and chaotic. Because I'm in Nebraska and I used to live in Kansas, and one week it's Monday you're like, okay, cool, this weekend's gonna be good, and then by like Thursday you've got a foot and a half of snow, and you're like, I guess I'm not going to that show.
Yeah, and then one day it's dry, and the next there's a tornado.
Exactly, and you're just
Yeah.
like, all right. Hey, why didn't you go to the show this weekend? Well, there's a
Well, it
tornado
got flooded
across the
out.
there's a tornado across the highway, and like I decided it was time to turn around and go home. Like there was other plans
Yep.
going.
It's funny because in New York we always think like, oh, we have it pretty rough with all the snow in the winter. But like then you head out and you play a show in Colorado and you're like, oh, this state like burns and then floods. Like you guys have it just as bad.
And then
Like
there's a
it's
foot and
just
a half of
different bad.
snow in 1 month. Like,
Exactly. And then everything starts on fire, all the snow melts, everything gets flooded, and they just act like it's normal and you're like, what are you thinking? But people say the same about us when we get dumped 3 feet of snow on us, and we're like, oh, we'll just take a day off.
you're like, it's Tuesday. What do you expect? Like, it's what
Whatever,
happens
it's a
up
snow
here.
day, it's fine. At least it didn't happen on a weekend.
Only screwed up my work week, not the weekend when I can do.
Yeah,
Like I'm not out there on
it's
Saturday
totally
shoveling
fine.
snow.
Oh. And we have the crap luck of we'll play a show, we'll book a show in March in like Niagara Falls, and then somehow it gets dumped on with ice, in March, right before our show. That happened to us 2 years ago, where we had this great show that sold so well, and then nobody showed up to the show because there was a massive ice storm while we were waiting to load in on the show
Oh
in
man.
March.
Yeah, that's the thing that some people don't, unless you're in the lifestyle, they don't understand. Like, it's not so much like you spend a lot of time paying attention to radars, and it's like, okay, we got a show Saturday. Okay, what do we got going on here? And you're watching, whatever weather app you're looking at, and all of a sudden it's like, hey guys, the show might not be happening. We got this cell coming in. It's looking bad.
And the funniest thing is we will never be the band that calls the show off. We don't do it. We've canceled one show in 8 years. And that's only because our drummer put a nail through his foot at work. That's it. That was the only reason. So we won't call off the show. Someone else has to make that call because we're not going to. We will play to nobody.
That I think right there is the musician in people, because it's like, hey, my mom just passed away like 45 minutes ago. I know we go on next. Could we, like, you know, bump our set time? Like, can we go on one more band? Because old boy's over here losing it. Like, we need to give him a bit to compose. Can we go on after this?
Then 8 years ago, I was in the hospital. I got out of the hospital. I was in the hospital for 2 weeks. I got out of the hospital, had a show 2 days later, and the venue, the promoter, the other bands were all calling me, going, dude, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And I'm like, and it was a solo acoustic set. I had no one else to fall back on. And I got up there and I played an hour and a half set on my own 2 days after getting out of the hospital. And it's like, I'm not going to cancel. You need to cancel it. You need to make that call because I'm not going to do it. I'm gonna try.
Yeah, I 100% understand and get it. It's definitely the musician mentality, like doing those things because you know that, like, not just being a musician, but we're also fans of music, and we've bought those concert tickets, and there's certain bands that I'm pretty sure you've seen, that I've seen, where it's like we were excited to see them, and they just kind of phoned the show in, and they weren't like
Yeah.
there, and then it rubs you the wrong way, and then everybody's like, oh, so and so's coming back through, and you're like, I don't fucking care. They're like,
Yeah.
but they're so and so, and you're like, yeah, so I've seen them twice. The first time was awesome. The second time, they phoned it in and were a little cocky. So, like, I've got other
I
stuff to
can
go.
name a few bands, man, just like that I have no interest in seeing again. But I think it's one of those things for us, like, especially when we're dealing with bad stuff, whether it's weather or it's health issues or whatever problems we're dealing with, we always want that sense of normalcy. And for those of us who play music, it is the most normal we feel, is being on stage in front of a crowd performing and just being who we are. Because most of the time we have to wear these masks and these characters, you know. But on stage, you're you. You're you. There's no question about who that is. So it's one of those things where, for a sense of normalcy, we're gonna do it. So if someone's gonna cancel it, it's not gonna be us.
No, that's a good point right there, of the wearing masks, and you get a, unless you're Slipknot, Kiss, Mudvayne, or Mushroom Head, or Guar. You're right. Most people do kind of wear a certain mask because you got to be a certain way at work, or you can't, you know, tell your coworker to go jump off a bridge. But in the song that you wrote, you can tell them to do exactly that, and you can let all that anger and frustration and
And I would even argue with bands that wear masks, they're actually wearing a representation of their truest form. If you look at Corey Taylor and Slipknot, I think he's being genuine on stage.
oh yeah, I'm not saying they're
Maybe,
not being
yeah.
genuine. It's
I
just
think his, I think that literal mask is an actual demask for a lot of them.
it's an escape of a flesh type of mask. It's a way that they can be more than, like they said, it's more of a representation of themselves, or being who they are. except maybe Guar. Guar, I'm not sure with the space alien thing,
Guar is a little bit of an exception. We'll give Gar a pass on that one.
but they're the only ones.
Yeah, that's
but
about it.
but
They're
I
the
think
only ones.
it's the artistic representation as well of themselves that they can do something that other people aren't doing or can't do or won't do. Because getting on
Right.
like just being an artist or a band member, just being on stage is not everybody is built for it. Like
Oh,
some
definitely
people are
not.
amazing guitar players, and I can sit here and do my TikTok videos, and I can write incredible stuff. But you put me on stage, and I'm up there, and I'm like, and I freeze, or I can emulate what other people do, but I can't do. I don't have the ability to write my own stuff.
Well, and it's where I think I've lucked out, in finding my way with Otherworldly Entity is my bandmates, Flacco Gurgle and Sean Washer, where they make way more mistakes in practice than they make on stage. Because once they're on stage, they're them. They're full blown them, and they're just balls to the wall, epic every time. And so even when they make mistakes, it turns into like this huge performance and show. We did a show back in August where Flacco accidentally tuned his guitar to the wrong tuning. And
Which
just started
happens.
playing he started playing one of our songs and it wasn't sounding right. And it's our song Foreplay. And he started it and stopped. And I'm like, what's wrong? And he's like, something's off. And then he starts playing again. And I go, what's wrong? And he goes, there's something wrong here. And I turn to the crowd and I go, we're just giving you the ultimate foreplay. And it turned into like, it's just part of the show.
but
And the whole crowd went nuts. And afterwards, people are like, you need to do that at every show.
but at the same point in time, like the everything aligned where it was that song was the one that didn't sound right. Like if it would have been
Right.
any other one, it wouldn't have worked for the hey, we're giving you the ultimate for like you could play off of it. And that's always
Yup.
kind of the fun thing about like talking with the musicians because I know the first time if I like the first time I'll see you guys, be like, oh man, you guys sounded good. You're like, oh yeah, on the third song, I didn't hold the note right or I didn't hit this one or the drummer's like, oh I missed the cymbal crash. The guitar player's like, you know, it's supposed to go da 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 and I went da 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 and hit the wrong and it's like, dude, ain't nobody gonna notice that.
See, we never do that. We never do that. The only thing we'll do is if there's something we really like that's a little variation, which we do variations of our own songs all the time because however the crowd is reacting to us, we live in it in that moment. And so things take their own form. And so like I remember Washer did something in our song Red Flags. He did something a little different. And I'm like, dude, I loved what you did on that. Like, that was awesome. He's like, I don't remember what we did. And I'm like, oh, there was a camera rolling. You'll see.
Yeah, that's
But we aren't the kind that sit there and go, oh, no, we messed this up. We messed this up. We messed this up. No, we didn't mess anything up. It's our music.
well,
However it came out, that's what it was supposed to be that day.
like I like the part how you said you feed off the crowd. So like obviously, if the crowd's really into it, you're gonna be more into it than like you said. You always want to go up there and give everything on stage and get off a stage and be like,
Yeah.
fuck, I got nothing left. Hey, we want one more. You want what? Like, dude, hang on. Let me take, let me get a smoke really quick, or let me take a hit from my vape. Like, give me a second, really quick.
Yeah. See, it's got
Sure,
to
yeah,
be a
we'll come
push
out and
and
do one
pull.
more.
Yeah, it's a push and pull. It's a push and pull. We're pushing and they're pulling, and it's just back and forth. And whenever like we played that show in Massachusetts, and I look out and there's these few people right in front of the stage that are singing my song back to me, which is always one of the craziest things to me. Because like I can remember writing that song and you're singing it back at me, and it just makes you get even more into it. And then they get more into it, and then you get more into it, and Like if I walk off the stage and I have no voice left, I am absolutely thrilled with my night.
You sound like you've been smoking unfiltered cigarettes for 60 years. Like, yeah, last night was.
I mean, I quit smoking a year ago, but
But you want to
it's one of those things,
have that raspy sound where you
right?
know that you gave everything and you let all the feel you got into the feelers and you let all the feelers out into the world, whatever positive,
Yeah,
negative.
and we have such a crossover between both clean vocals and screaming that there's that just crossing over between those two techniques is very exhausting.
Oh, I
Um,
bet.
but
I was a
it,
screamer and a growler. That was my vocal
yeah,
forte.
and those low growls, like when you get into those gutturals, that is so like taxing on your voice.
Oh, the
You
vocal
know?
cords, the throat, like not just like the vocal cords itself, but like you're saying, the throat, the abdomen,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
you're
and you feel
sore.
your diaphragm. Yep, your diaphragm is like swollen because you've been pulling on it so much. Because to get that much air that quickly, it's such a crazy thing. And I didn't even have a screaming technique up until a few years ago. I just never had it. And I sat there and watched YouTube videos of foxes screaming and tried copying them. And that's how I learned how to have a fry scream. And then started trying to develop that. How long can I hold a scream? And then you start pulling muscles and start getting rips and tears, and you go, okay, well, that's the limit.
100% understand, and it's uh also like with doing like you said doing it for 8 years. Obviously, there's going to be some style changes and uh just wear and tear on the body where you're like, ooh, I can't do that song very well anymore. Because for the like say one song you hit that one certain Phil Anselmo Cemetery Gates, everybody knows that note that he hits that there's no way
Yeah.
he can hit anymore. Like we all know that. So have you noticed there's any change in like vocal styles or you've had to do things different because of age and wear and tear?
For me, it's all about set list. It's about the song order. Um, I remember when we finished our first album, Cataclysm, the last song on that album is Foreplay. And that's the first song I really ever went heavy on the screams in. And the first time I ever performed that live, I almost passed out on stage. I didn't have the breathing down. We were in the middle of COVID, so we were performing it on stage behind like a plexiglass
Oh,
aquarium, essentially. It was crazy. But I almost passed out on stage because I didn't have the breathing down. I had only done it in practice and in recording.
well, and recording
So doing it on
recording is
stage is
completely
totally
different because
different.
it's like you do a little part, and then okay,
Yep.
you take your breath. Meaning, uh, huh?
What?
Said meeting's ending in 10 minutes, but I can always restart the internet.
Okay.
Like yeah, it's
Um,
like upgrade and you can have it. It's like yeah, okay.
um, yeah, I mean, but that song, Foreplay, is now a song that I'm so comfortable with. It never taxes me like that anymore. So it seems like every time we write, I'm pushing my limits more and more. But there's like certain songs we can't do back to back. They just can't be done. The breathing isn't there. The airflow isn't there. So on our second album, Solo Cyborg, there's a song called Grief, and that is probably the hardest song I have vocally. And literally, I mean, you were talking earlier about like the difficulty of canceling shows and stuff, and this is a song that the day of my father's funeral, Blacko and Sean wrote all the instrumentation, and then the next day I was in the studio working on vocals. So it's just one of those songs where I'm like, I have to get this out. And so performing that live is emotionally difficult. So it makes the vocals really difficult. So the next song after that has to be much easier.
Oh, I
It
bet.
has to give me a break. So I mean, it's giving up by Linkin Park is kind of my test. That long, like 20-second scream Chester
Oh
Bennington
yeah.
does in the bridge, I can nail it, but the conditions have to be perfect for me to nail it. So that's one of those, like, I do it like once a week, just practicing it, just to go, okay, I still have it. I can still do it. I don't have to, but I can.
The one when I found out that I could do the long screams or like that was Drowning Pool's Body or
Yeah.
Laid to Rest. That part that low growl that he turns into the
Yeah.
scream, like that was always the one where it's like that was always
See,
something
you know,
that
I could never imagine doing those low growls and those gutturals because my clean voice sits in that same range, and my scream is in the fry, so it's up high.
yeah.
So they kind of don't touch each other. So my screams can get out of control, and my clean voice is still clean. And my clean voice can get out of control, and my screams are still there. But every time I try to do those gutturals, man, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna break something.
It's a there's certain things when it comes to music, like when with a vocalist, like you can either do a certain style, like you can either sing and sound amazing, or you can do like gutturals. But there's not a whole like there's only a couple people I've ever seen that can do both, and you're just like you're on your own. You just stay over there, you weirdo.
And a lot of those people, if you look at them, they're not performing like night after night after night. You know, they're doing tours where they're doing a show, and then a couple weeks later they're doing another show, and then a couple weeks later they're doing another show. So they're pacing themselves because, I mean, it's an unsustainable technique to do both of them. Really, I think for most people.
Corey Taylor's probably the only one that I can really go in there that can do the gutturals and the clean vocals. He's
And I idolize Corey Taylor's voice. I absolutely idolize Corey Taylor's voice. I try so hard to be able to do half the stuff he can do. But it's when he gets into the Stone Sour stuff, like he has such a beautiful singing voice.
oh yeah,
You know,
he's one
his
of the I would
his
call him like
gutturals and his screams.
he's a freak when it comes to what he can vocally do.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so crazy. And I have covered so many Slipknot and Stone Sour songs over the years just because of how much I idolize his voice. But it's one of those things where I'm like, I don't know how you do this night after night for as many years as you've done it. And yet you can still like crack jokes in interviews.
Yeah, right after your set, like, oh yeah, we just went on like 45 minutes ago.
Yeah. And you're just like, how? How are you doing this?
We're over here like, yeah, I just went on 45 minutes ago, and oh, shit.
It's the same thing with if you've ever listened to the band Cyclone 9, they're an industrial band.
Oh yeah,
Nero Bellum, his voice, we played with them live, and live, his voice is so incredible and dead on to the albums. And then we're sitting there talking to him afterwards about like where to get pizza. And I'm like, how did you just do that for an hour and a half? And now you're sitting here talking to us about pizza. Like, I don't get how this shouldn't be possible. Like, it makes you feel like as a singer, you have so much work left to do, but not in a negative way, like in an exciting way. Like you have so much ground to gain.
It's the fun competitiveness where you see what they're doing and you're like, I want to be there.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's not a negative thing. It's probably one of the biggest compliments where it's like, I want to do that.
Exactly. And there's a great picture of me and a bunch of my friends with Nero from Cyclone 9, and it looks like a screenshot straight out of World of Warcraft. But I'm like, that's what I want to do. Like that one, such a strong image, but then to have such a high skill level that you make something that difficult look that easy, and then you could get off stage and go, where's the best place to get pizza?
Yeah.
And you just go, what are you talking about? I'll buy the pizza.
We'll go with off of we'll feed off of that a little bit. Where okay, uh, obviously somebody that's there's influence there from him. What are some of the other artists that have influenced you that you've been able to meet or been able to see like do be on the same bill with?
Okay, I would say that the two that stand out the most to me would be meeting and playing with Tantric. Hugo is amazing. When I was younger, I've always had this low voice. I even when I was 14 years old, I sounded like an old grizzled old man. And at that time, if you're thinking like My Chemical Romance and that kind of stuff is out, everyone's listening to like Dashboard Confessional. Everyone has these high pitched and falsetto voices, and I have this low pitched Johnny Cash voice. And to hear your voice being represented in a band like Tantric, where they're selling out shows, they're doing songs like Breakdown and Morning and Astounded, and it gave me hope in my youth that my oddity was something that could be marketable. And we just played. I have been trying for years to get on a bill with Tantric, and we just played with them this year. And Hugo was absolutely incredible. Like hanging out with him after the show, he was so sweet and so kind. We talked to him about going on tour. So it's one of those bands that I was really glad to get that opportunity.
Was there the fanboy moment? Did you have the fanboy
I
moment when you met him, or like you held your composure and then you walked off and then you did the fanboy moment where nobody could see it, like around the corner where you're like,
No,
yee.
there's a better version of that. With Hugo, I played it really cool because I think I've met so many of my heroes now that it doesn't feel that way. But the best example was back in 2019. We weren't going by Otherworldly Entity yet. We were going by John Harris and the Otherworldly Entity at the time, and we got booked on a show with my number one band in all of my bands, and that is Cold. Uh,
Oh, I
Cold
I have seen them once, and those guys are amazing.
Cold is we've now played with them 4 times, but
Oh,
Cold is when I was 14 years old, I got their album and I was sitting there with my best friend and my girlfriend at the time, and I looked at them both. I put that album in, and it got to the song "End of the World," and I went, "I want to play with these guys someday." And I remember my best friend went, "Don't you have to like be better at this?" And I'm like, "I will get better at this."
I can't
And my
remember.
girlfriend at the
Was
time,
that on Cold's second album or their first one? 13 Ways to Bleed
second.
on Stage, or was that the one with Stupid Girl on it?
No, that was 13. It was on 13. It was
Okay,
on 13.
okay, because that was
Yep.
an
Yep.
amazing album.
It was such a good album. But my girlfriend at the time later became my wife, and now we're divorced. But she said, anyway,
Stupid
so I'll get
free
right
version.
back to it. Yes. Yep. So anyway, so I said I don't care if it takes me 20 years. I'm gonna play with Cole. It's gonna happen. I'm gonna play with them. It's gonna happen. And in 2019, we actually got the opportunity to get on stage with Cole for the first time, and it was such a surreal experience because everything about leading up to the show, like we loaded in. I mean, we loaded in like 6 hours early for the show. Obviously with a tour, load in usually early, and then we just hung out with Cole, for 6 hours, and we just hung out, having food, having drinks, and just talking with Cole. And I think kind of the craziest part of that to me was it what really made me fanboy. I was really like, don't fanboy, don't fanboy, don't fanboy, don't do it. And kind of the craziest part about it was like back in 2017, I ended up having a suicide attempt and I was hospitalized for a couple weeks. And when I got out, I recorded a cover of Bleed by Cole from 13. and I posted it online, and Scooter actually shared it and commented on it. And it was a huge honor,
Oh
to
yeah.
have that. Fast forward 2 years, and we're playing with them. Almost 2 years to the day, we're playing with them. And after the show, or before the show, he's sitting there next to me. There's actually like a photo of this moment too. And he's sitting next to me, and he goes, "Hey man, I just wanted to say I'm really glad you're here." And I said, I'm glad to be here too. Thanks for having us." He's like, "No, man, I'm glad you're here." He's like, "I remember that video, and I remember the stuff that led up to it. And it really means a lot to me that you're on stage with me today."
Oh
And that was just
man.
so, like, dude, it took every ounce of energy in me to not just fall at that moment. I did later, don't get me wrong. I
Oh
did
well,
later.
but there was
But,
dust in the
but
room,
it was
right?
just, yeah, it was just so surreal that you could fast forward 2 years and this thing that you kind of thought maybe, like, of course he commented on it and shared the video, 2 years prior. But like, how many times have you seen some guy with a guitar covering Bleed? It's probably happened a million times. So for that to stick out in his head and him remember that, and then him connect the dots on who that was,
Yeah.
coming up on stage with them. It was so surreal. And then we continued to play with them 3 more times after that.
Oh
So it was
man.
it was such an incredible experience. And every time we get the call to play with Cole, we're like, yeah, we're in. Let's do it. We're on stage. Anything you need, we're there.
Oh, that's a cool story.
That's one of those, like, they say never meet your heroes. And that was
Bullshit.
one of
Meet
those.
them because they are some of the
I I
coolest people.
met I met my hero, and he surpassed every expectation I had of a hero. Like, he just surpassed. He had such a zen attitude, and the funniest was our bassist at the time when we were loading onto stage. This was a big stage in an old iron uh, refinery,
Oh, okay.
and yeah, it was a really cool venue. And our bassist is bringing his amp up on the stage, and there's a curtain there, and he's trying to go through, and there's someone in his way. He's like, "Get the F out of my way." And it was Scooter that was in his way. And so later on, I pointed out to my bassist, I'm like, "Oh, that's Scooter Ward." He's like, "Oh, no." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "I told him to get the F out of my way." And I'm like, "You did what?" He's like, "Yeah, I did." And so when I was talking to Scooter later, I'm like, "I'm so sorry he was rude to you." And Scooter's like, "No, man, I was in his way." And I'm like, this guy is just so zen and
You're
so,
like,
like,
how
down
do
to
you
earth
get
and
to this
centered.
level of cool? Like, I want to be at
Yeah,
that level.
like, and what it is I talked to him a couple times. We played with him. Like, later, I talked to him about it, and he was like, "You just don't understand how grateful I am to be doing what I'm doing. There's no reason to be upset. I'm grateful every day I get to do it." And that's just one of those things where, like, I've tried as hard as I can to adopt that mentality of, I'm just lucky to do what I do. If it's for 5 people, if it's for 500 people, I'm just glad and lucky to be able to do that, and to have the crew I have and the support I have, and the bandmates I have.
No, and
It's such a, when you think back, you think back 8 years, and I should have been dead, and now here I am. And it's one of those things where you're like, Scooter was right, you know?
yeah, and no, I fully agree where you're saying, meet your heroes. Hitting the big ass poster here.
Yeah,
Like,
I saw it back there.
I got to go see Snot April 26th, the day before my birthday in Colorado Springs. I got to interview him. And like, there's a joke at the beginning of the interview because I screwed up my name. I said I'm Red Haired the Hippy, and I was like, hang on, fanboy moment. And they started laughing. But like, super cool guys. One of the, huge moment for me just being like, they're probably my number one all time favorite band. So being able to
Yeah,
get to meet them, interview them, getting permission to photograph them. But I found if you just talk to these bands like normal people and you try not to fanboy too much, they're really cool people to hang out with and just talk with.
yeah. There's the first time I ever met the guys in Everclear, and Freddie Herrera, the bassist of Everclear, has become one of my best friends. Like, he's a huge friend of mine, huge supporter over the years. Love the guy to absolute death. But the first time I ever met him, they were playing a show with One Republic of all bands, which is kind of an odd lineup. But they're on stage. One Republic is on stage, and I'm kind of in the back of the auditorium. And I see two guys standing to the side, and it's Freddie and Davey French from Everclear. And I like just walk up to them, and I'm like, "Oh, these guys are pretty good." And they're like, "Yeah, they're pretty good." I'm like, "Wow, they're better than Everclear." And both of them just look at each other and then look over at me and said, "Hey guys, let's do it," and shook their hands. And then from that point on, I was friends with Freddie, and I've been friends with him since. And every time they're in town, I hang out with him and stuff. And he's such a chill guy and such a cool guy. But it's one of those things, bro. It's just be a person. Just be a person.
Oh yeah, they're like I hung out with Stevie from Skin Lab. They were also on the Snot Show, and I was like I got to the venue super early because I was trying to do my thing of photography and videos and interviews, and just ended up hanging out with them. And they're like, everybody else is getting kicked out, and they're like, no, that guy's cool. He can stay in here with us.
Yup.
Like,
Yup.
like doing but like it's like you were saying, just treat them like they're normal people, and try not to be too overly like.
Yeah. Yeah, I did a paranormal investigation with Brian Wheat from Tesla.
From which one?
And it was Brian Wheat from Tesla.
Oh,
the faces.
Yeah.
And I actually did an investigation of his mansion. And doing that with him, like you had to forget who he was. You're doing like a 5-6 hour investigation with this guy. And you're investigating his private recording studio and stuff. And you just like have to remind yourself, like, no, don't get all excited. You're on a task right now.
You're on a job. You can't fanboy right now. Do that later.
Yeah, like this is like investigating with him. That's beyond getting an autograph. Like, just let it go.
Like that was, and the other thing too. Like, obviously, you've met a fair amount of what we call idol celebrities and all this other stuff in the industry. And I've learned that if I hang back and let everybody else have their moment, then I get to go, like the bar's not going to kick me out. Like I'm not trying to sound arrogant or cocky, but like, the promoters know that I'm there. I'm doing the photos and the videos. So they're, usually, hey, this guy's cool. We're not worried about him. So I let everybody else have their moment because I know I can hang out, 45 minutes, an hour after the bar closes with all of them. And it's always kind of cool to watch, them interact with like the guy who's super excited to see them or, picks up all their merch. And it's always an interesting, fascinating thing to watch.
And I'll say the only fanboy thing I do every time we play with a big band, which we do a lot around here, is I always get them to autograph my set list from my band. Because anyone can get their set list. But I have my set list, my personal set list that's in front of me on stage, and they sign mine. And so I have a whole wall of just bands that have signed my set list from my set.
That's a cool idea, actually. Because, okay, you can get on eBay, like, unfortunately, when certain ones pass away, people get on eBay and they, pawn off, oh, this is so-and-so's autograph, and they try to cash in. But who's going to, not to demoralize you or diminish you at all, but
right.
Who's going to buy your set list with, Ozzy's signature on it? Like, they're going to look at you and be like, you got Ozzy. Why do I want your set list? Like, why didn't you get his?
And I'll tell you, man, every time I do it, the bands always look at us like, this is genius. This is absolutely genius. Every time. They're excited about it. And I'm like, it's one of those things to add to my collection. This is like just a thing for me. Exactly. So it's not about value or worth. It's priceless to me.
Well, and like also too, like you've obviously been doing this long enough, and like the bands that we idolize or we think are, our most influential bands or our top 5 bands may not be other people. So like, I gotta meet, you know, we'll go Ozzy, and there's somebody who's like, so I don't like Ozzy, but like Johnny Cash is their number one, and you're like,
Yeah.
but it's always interesting because you get to meet different ones, and when you get to meet these ones, and then asking, what your influences and those type of things, and then hearing all these stories is always just for me more of a fascinating thing because like a lot of the interviews people have done enough of them where it's the same questions versus just having kind of a vibe going on where you're talking and you're hearing the stories that if you go, okay, so you went to the studio, you wrote your album, what was the hardest song to write off of it, how's the tour go, the same
Yeah.
basic questions versus vibing and you're going, oh yeah, I did an investigation with this guy, and it's like,
Yeah. This see, I do so many of these interviews, and I way prefer when it's organic. It's just so much more fun. But I was a reporter for magazines for years, so I know what's expected and what's supposed to be.
and you want
And
to try to ask
yeah,
something that isn't the normal question because
right,
you want to stand out as being, okay, he's good at what he does, but he's different. He doesn't ask
right. Catch
this.
me off guard anytime. Catch me off guard.
Yeah, kind of like we're having a conversation about doing paranormal investigations, and then it's into music stuff, and then we're back to hanging out with bands behind the stage and all
and
these.
then getting cut off in the middle.
Yeah, and then free version only gives you X amount of time, and it.
Yeah.
I found the organic feel is more genuine and doesn't sound like Obviously, you're gonna have certain pre-written sometimes have
Oh
a
yeah.
pre-written one where it's like you heard something and you want to go ask this band and find out if this is true, that this story is something that actually
Oh,
happened.
have you heard any rumors about us? I'd love to hear rumors.
No, I
There's a lot out
haven't.
there.
like I
There's a
was
lot out there. You can.
like I was literally getting ready, getting all the stuff set up, and I was like, I need to listen to what these guys sound like. So like I found, because I do a lot of I also do reaction review videos, and like I knew there was a new one. You guys just released Towers,
Yup.
and it's like that's the new one that was only a month old. So I'm gonna hold off on that one. I'm gonna find something from before, throw one earbud in, and like setting stuff up, and it's like, oh, okay, okay. Kind of has this like new metal, but not new metal, but a rock feel. But like then there's a metal part in there, and it has like
See, the only reason we say new metal is because to us the definition of new metal is metal combined with something else, right? That's usually what it is. Usually it's rap or hip hop to some extent. But for us, Laco and I actually met doing folk music. We both met each other doing like Americana folk acoustic music. I did solo tours as an acoustic musician, and Laco would open the show with me, and then we would do stuff together on stage, and that's how we met. So to us, it's like folk metal, new metal, because Laco is from Bosnia. He has this very Eastern European folk sense to him. I went to school for anthropology. I love playing with different cultural, experiences. And both of us are really hardcore fans of System of a Down, which obviously has huge Armenian influence. So
system
that's
is
why.
such a system was so it was such a different band at the time,
Yeah. Yeah, they were.
and it's
It all depends on which album.
exactly their first album
uh,
is completely different than Toxicity, but that's the one that dropped all the I'd have to say all the
hits.
hits off of it, and then
Yup.
you
But then you have Hypnotized, Mesmerized, and those just take left turns all over the place.
and then Don't Steal This Album.
Oh yeah, Don't Steal This Album, which which is all just B-sides, you know? And you're like, dude, I love your B-sides. Mr. Jack is amazing.
Exactly, and I like seeing bands where they're trying different things and they're doing different things, and it's like, okay, this album is its own entity, and this album is its own entity. Sometimes I get you got certain sounds that you're going to have, but seeing bands grow as artists and individuals is always nice to see.
Well, that's why our third studio album was acoustic. So when you look back, we had Cataclysm and Still a Cyborg, and then we did Inside Out, which is a full acoustic reimagining of our favorite songs off the first two albums. And that's because we met doing acoustic, and we went, we have like the most badass metal drummer in the world. Let's make him do acoustic. You know, so that's what we did for our third studio album.
That and it's interesting because it's something different that a lot of people don't expect a band to drop an acoustic album anymore. Like it's not really heard of anymore.
No, especially in any kind of metal genre, because I think there's a lot of metal guitarists out there who, if they can't do a pinch harmonic, they're not good at it. So it's one of those things where, like, we kept getting heavier and heavier and progressively heavier with our music, and we wanted to remind people, hey, we are new metal, so we can get softer too, and go back and do, you know, reimagine our favorite songs acoustic, you know, with some new songs on it. So I mean, the way Foreplay came out on the acoustic album, I love the way that came out. I was so, and Sin too. Sin felt so exotic when it was acoustic.
That's a cool take on it. Well, like you said, you're reimagining the first two albums and doing something different with it. So that's I'm not actually. When is that album supposed to come out?
Well, that album's already out.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'll have to
That
find it
album's already
online.
out. Yeah. The next album to come out is a full electric album called Mycerium, which comes out at the end of the month on the 30th.
Okay, that's the one you were talking about.
Yeah. But what's cool is we start Mycerium off where the acoustic album Inside Out ends. So we kind of transition from the acoustic album back into electric.
Oh,
you know,
that's cool.
Yeah, that's something that was really, really important to us. Was, you know, this is such an odd little phase, and you know, obviously you've seen our marketing. We do everything in blues and greens and stuff like that. But then for Inside Out, we switched to red and yellow. You know, because it's Inside Out, it's the opposite. So we want to make sure people understand this is not our normal album, and now it transitions back.
Oh, that's
What
cool. Like
we want.
The little hints of, like, I don't know, picking the brain and finding out these little different things of we did this and we did this for this one, and
yeah, and the first track of the new album is actually an instrumental, which we haven't done on any of our albums before. And it's one of those kinds of songs where when we first started working on it, Zlatko came to me and went, "Where do you think the lyrics fall in this?" And I went, "I don't think they do." And he went, "What do you mean?" I said, "I think this is our first instrumental." And then the last track on the new album is derived from the instrumental. So it's bookends on the album. So, and that one has lyrics to it. It's called "Don't Know." And so they're derived from each other. So it sounds consistent. So if you listen to the whole album on repeat, it sounds consistent. But if you listen straight from the acoustic album into the new album, it also sounds consistent. Time is not a straight line.
Was that a planned thing or it just kind of happened?
It was planned. It was vaguely planned. It was an idea that we
obviously the acoustic into the metal album probably was planned.
Right. The book ending was planned. The book ending was planned. When we got done writing the instrumental, we talked about how we liked specific parts of the instrumental and we really wanted to use it again. And so I said, let's write something that derived from that that's more of a standard song with vocals and stuff like that in it to end the album, so that it comes around full circle. So it was planned. It was perfect.
Oh, okay. Kind of
We
planned
we
on the
don't like to repeat ourselves a
kind of
lot. We don't like to.
planned on the fly in a sense where
Yeah.
it wasn't
Yeah.
like some of these ones where it's like you're okay, we're gonna do this and then we're gonna write it this way and then we're gonna do this and then we're gonna like, hey, we like
We
this.
we
Let's maybe throw this on the end of the track and add something to it.
Yeah, so with us, all of our writing is 100% organic. We don't really force anything. We are not like I think all of us in this band are overthinkers in life, but in art we are not. It's about organic, what feels right. So when we sit down and write a song, like Tower is a great example. Um, we were working on a different track that's going to be on a different album with Matt Tybor from The Bunny and the Bear. And we were working on that song at the time. That song is called Happy, and I just wasn't feeling it. I was like, I cannot work on a song called Happy. I'm not doing it. So instead, I sat down and just worked on some stuff I was feeling. And in a matter of 20 minutes, I wrote and recorded a demo for Tower, and then sent it to the guys. And within a couple hours, they're like, okay, let's tweak this, let's adjust this. And in the next practice, we sat down and finished the song. And that's kind of how just writing is for us. Is we just sit down and just do it, and whatever feels right, because that's genuine. You know,
Yeah.
that's where emotion is. So we don't really overthink all that much when it comes to tracks. I think Foreplay is one of those songs that's really heavily worked, thought about, but most of our tracks are not like it. So as far as the two tracks being derivative of each other, that's as planned as it can be in our band.
Okay, that and that makes sense because like the way that you phrased it, where it's like that's as planned as it can be. I think that seeing enough bands and doing enough bands, like you try to plan something and it's either gonna be completely different than what you planned, or it's gonna fail miserably.
Well, and I mean that's our song "Sin," which was like one of our most. It's still one of our most popular songs. Probably my favorite song still to play live. "Sin" is one of those songs I wrote and recorded a demo. I sent it to Zlatko and Sean, and we didn't get to it right away. So like 3 or 4 months later, we're hanging out, and Zlatko says, "Hey, what about that song you sent us? Let's work on that." And I went, "Oh yeah, sure, I remember that song." And so I just started playing something random on guitar, and they started playing with me, and that became Sin. And then when we were shooting the music video for that, I said to the guys, I'm like, "Oh, by the way, this sounds nothing like the demo."
Oopsie.
Yep. And I just went, well, this is Sin now. No one ever needs to know that it's not what the original plan was.
But if you would have gone with the original demo, would it have been that song then?
No, it wouldn't have. Especially because Sin is the first song we wrote with Washer on drums. And that is the first song that has like a genuine breakdown in it. Like a full on genuine breakdown. And of course, because we have like one of the most badass drummers in the world. So of course there's going to be a breakdown in it. So I don't think the actual demo version would have had room for that. But because we were playing it on the fly. What's that?
Did you guys end up using the demo version on something else, or is it just still kind of stashed over there?
Tucked away. It's tucked away. Tucked away. I don't even like it now compared to what came out. I'm like, that was crap. That was crap.
those are the cool things where you find out that it's like, yeah, we had this original idea and yeah, it's over there now.
The best ones I just didn't want to admit that I forgot it. That's all it was when Zach was like, let's work on that song. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember it. And then I started playing the do 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 do. I'm like, all right, yeah, that's it. He's like, are you sure that's it? I'm like, 100%, I wrote it. He's like, okay. And then we just started jamming it. And that is not what it originally was.
the best argument between musicians. Are you sure? Yeah, I fucking wrote it. Oh, well.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. Then you go back and find the demo like right after practice. Like, no, it's not.
I know. The best part was he never looked it up. He never looked it up. We recorded a demo sitting there. And actually, the funny thing was, we were at my house, and my roommate was walking through the room while we were like jamming it out with a recording going. And she goes, "I'm angry," and walks through the room. And we sampled that in the breakdown of that song. We actually sampled her going, "I'm angry." So it's like it was totally winged in the moment. That song is just BS on the spot. And we sampled my roommate walking through the room going, "I'm angry." And that's it. That's how the song was made. And he never looked up the demo. Like, until I told him months and months later when we were shooting the music video, I told him, "Oh, by the way, it sounds something like the demo." And he actually looked it up and he's like, "Oh my God, this is not the same song." I'm like, "Not at all. No." I'm like, "I'm happier with the way it turned out."
But at least you said it when you're already, like, you've already recorded it, you're shooting the video for it, like, there's no going back now. Like,
there was a release date set. There was a release date for the music video set. We had the whole cast and crew there on set for the music video. I'm like, you can't go back now. So I'll tell you.
Cancel rewriting. No, that's cool. Completely different.
But that's the nice thing about being with guys that you can write with like that.
Oh,
that
yeah.
You can just totally wing a song, and it just works. It's just fine.
Well, I think I'm going to have to get ready to kind of end this interview. I got a couple of things I got to still finish up tonight before I got to go back and do my boring job. Not this fun one that I'm doing here tonight. No, but I appreciate your time and chatting with you about...
Absolutely, man.
And might have to do another interview just solely on your ghost hunting stuff. And
I'm in. We'll do a creepy setting.
Yeah, because
I'll sit in a cemetery.
The funny thing is, I go photograph cemeteries in between shows and take photographs of headstones.
Oh, wow.
Nobody bothers you in a cemetery, especially when you're walking around with a camera. They leave you alone.
Yeah, why would they? They just say you're a ghost. Just say you're a ghost. Unless somebody's going to check your pulse, they're not going to know.
I did have one funny ass video that I made a reel of because I found these mushrooms at a cemetery. And I was like, and it was one of those like, you see the mushrooms, you can tell they're mushrooms. It's like, nope, not drying them out, not taking them, not in your wildest dreams. Like, that is not a trip I want to go on. And made a big joke about it, and it got like 8,000 views on YouTube. And they're like, you should do another one where you're like staring off. And I'm like, yeah, but like,
it's like that video gardening on salvia. You know, that's all it'd be, photographing on death shrooms.
Yeah, but I don't think I'd want to take shrooms that were found in a graveyard. Like, there's just like,
I wouldn't. I
haven't done any of that.
You know what they're feeding on. You know what they're feeding.
Exactly. Like, where is this going to go? And I can already see the supernatural. I'm going to need the Winchesters there to figure out how to exercise.
It's just cannibalism. Whatever. It's cannibalism light, you know? Diet cannibalism.
And that is a hell of a way to end an interview right there.
I think so. That should go on a t-shirt.
I agree with you on that one. Take shrooms from a graveyard. Cannibal light.
Yep. All right, man. Well, thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for doing this interview. I greatly appreciate it. You have a great evening.
Absolutely. It was a lot of fun, man. You too.